What's up YouTube? Jim Comics here. Halloween is in 2 days, so it's a good time for me to post a horror movie review. However, if there's any genre of movie that I am just not interested in, it's horror. I've watched Insidious and I've been to haunted houses, so I'm not scared of horror or scary things in general. It's just not an appealing genre to me. The characters usually acting stupid and superficial, and the scares usually feeling cheap. However, there are the occasional few suspenseful movies that I enjoy. They aren't horror movies per se, but they are not for the faint of heart. I just find these movies' explorations of existence and the raw emotion of fear to be more interesting than movies riding on their pure shock value and disgusting gore. Such suspenseful movies include The Thing, and what I'm going to review here, Signs. Before we get into the review though, remember to like, subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts on M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. I watched Signs this summer for the first time because of a video by Peanut Butter Gamer, where he mentioned the movie, and as someone who has an unreasonable fear of aliens, I decided to check it out. Like, I can do vampires, I can do zombies, but I can't do aliens. The movie has no joke become one of my favorite films of all time, and as someone who'd like to one day get into writing a novel, this movie will undoubtedly serve as an inspiration to me on good writing and thematic messaging. Or literary messaging in my case, if I write a novel. But enough general information. Let's get into the meat of this movie. Spoiler warning ahead. Signs is an alien invasion story, but not in the traditional sense. Throughout the movie, the audience hears of an alien invasion, sees the signs, roll credits, of the upcoming invasion, and sees the Hess family's struggle to survive the invasion once it occurs. While the alien invasion is a major focus of the movie and behind the premise, the movie is really about faith, and it uses the idea of an alien invasion to tell an impactful story about religion, most explicitly Christianity. The movie follows Graham Hess, a former Episcopal priest and now farmer, who has been struggling with whether he believes in or denies the existence of God. After his wife dies in a car accident, he loses faith and gives up the role of priest, left a widower to raise his two kids, Morgan and Bo. I would like to point out Morgan is the boy and Bo is the girl, which the names kinda suggest the opposite, but I mean, Morgan does work for both names, so just pointing that out. As I was saying, it was funny to me. As I was saying, Graham's brother Merrill moves in with him, following that tragic accident, and I'll argue that this role is one of Joaquin Phoenix's best, at least of those when he was younger. And similarly, Mel Gibson does a great job as Graham. Joaquin portrays Merrill's arrogance and youthfulness, while Mel embodies Graham's depression and hopelessness. Also, it's worth mentioning that Morgan is played by Rory Culkin, Macaulay Culkin's brother, and he, and Bo's actress, also deliver great performances here. Anywho, the family starts to notice strange activity on their farm, such as crop circles and aggressive animal behavior. They have to put down one of their dogs, even. As more and more signs begin to pop up, and the world at large starts to realize that humanity is not alone, Merrill, Morgan, and Bo begin to believe in an upcoming invasion, while Graham continues to deny the supernatural, and formulate logical explanations for the strange occurrences, paralleling how Graham has been ignoring the signs of God after his wife's death. When the alien invasion starts to occur, the family boards the house shut, but has to retreat to their basement, where the film's scariest scene occurs. The next day, they find out that a weakness for the aliens has been discovered in many Middle Eastern countries. The family starts to emerge from the basement, only for Morgan, recovering from an asthma attack, to be in the arms of an alien that Graham has encountered earlier, but he and the audience had not physically seen before. As the present story progresses, the audience gets to see more and more of Graham's wife's death, with the climax of both storylines overlapping, both in when the audience sees them and how the two stories connect. Graham remembers his wife's last words while the alien is about to poison Morgan, that's a power they have, and uses those last words to get the alien killed and save Morgan. After that miracle that he's just witnessed, Graham returns to being a priest with his faith now fully restored and even stronger than before. What is probably the most interesting aspect of this movie is that the audience doesn't see the aliens, or one of the most interesting aspects, is that the audience doesn't see the aliens until the last 10 minutes. M. Night Shyamalan keeps the aliens' appearance intentionally vague throughout, only dropping small hints at how they look, with an alien's slender leg appearing one third through the movie, and a blurry video of an alien marching through a Brazilian neighborhood during a child's birthday party about 2/3 through the movie, which, might I say, is one of the scariest scenes in this movie that I don't talk too much about in this video because it's very simple. But it's also on, I think, the Times 100 scariest movie scenes of all time, so you should probably Google that scene on your own. The design of the aliens is very standard, but doesn't matter because the design is cliche for a reason. It's spine chilling. The movie essentially lets the audience scare themselves with their own ideas how the aliens could look, until in the last 10 minutes, revealing their look. Honestly, the CGI is probably the worst part of this movie, with the alien at the end looking so jarring compared to the realistic look of the rest of the movie. It's clear the budget was not that big. The fact that the audience ever sees the alien's design up close makes rewatches admittedly not as scary, but the behavior and nature of the aliens still keeps them terrifying on later viewings. I have watched the movie twice, and the second time through, while I knew how things were playing out, I noticed details that I hadn't before, as the film drops seeds throughout for how the narrative wraps up, but more on that later. The withholding of the alien's design keeps the audience wondering during every scene if this is when their disturbing appearance will be revealed, constantly building suspense until the alien's appearance at the end shocks the audience, even through the lens of terrible CGI. By far, the scene that most exemplifies the viewer's constantly building suspense regarding the alien's look is the basement scene. The aliens are trying to find an alternate way to get down there and kill the Hesses, and the entire scene is completely shrouded in darkness, with only the shine of the family's flashlights letting the viewer see what's going on. There are numerous times where the viewer believes that the family is done for, with the flashlight dropping as they try to help Morgan escape the clutches of aliens, or the suspense at where Morgan and Graham are once Bo picks the flashlight back up. Throughout the movie, the viewer is constantly guessing when they will see the aliens, keeping them glued to the screen, on the edge of their seats, and always worried about whether the whole family will survive the ordeal. While it's not a horror movie, as I mentioned earlier, Science has its fair share of petrifying scenes that make October viewings extremely appropriate. The first truly horrifying scene is one where Graham, aware that something is not quite right on his farm, but believing that they're just being pranked by delinquents, goes out into his cornfield by himself, only armed with his flashlight. As he's there, he hears rustling throughout the cornstalks, paired with an eerie clicking noise, the alien's form of communication. There's a point where his flashlight dies and he tries to smack it back on, and the moment its power returns, it shines its light on a long, gray, slender leg sticking out of the patch that slowly emerges back into it. Or withdraws back into it. That is the moment where the audience truly shudders in fear, given a taste of the aliens preparing to harvest the population of the Earth. Another horrifying scene comes about halfway through the movie, where Graham goes to talk with the person who drove into his wife. The man, named Ray Reddy and played by the film's director, M. Night Shyamalan, is leaving his house and heading for a lakeside area because he heard that the aliens don't like water, and has stuffed one of the aliens in his pantry. Still alive. He tells Graham this, and Graham goes into his house to prove to himself that the aliens are not real. He sees the alien's legs through the bottom of Ray's pantry door, and tries to catch a glimpse of the whole creature with a knife, resulting in the alien swiping at his face with sharp claws. Graham panics and chops the alien's fingers off, a detail that comes back to bite him at the end of the movie, when that same alien, with his fingers missing, is the one who tries to kill Morgan. The tension in this scene is killer, with Graham debating whether or not he should try and catch a peek, trying to convince himself that there are no aliens, and unintentionally allowing the alien to get close to a knife that it could have used, but thankfully didn't. As I mentioned above, the scariest scene in this movie is probably the basement one, but there is also the scene preceding it where the family is standing in the living room as they hear the alien's footsteps and the bark of their dog as it dies. The suspense built with pure sound here is horrifying and invokes pure emotion from the viewer without using loads of CGI and written dialogue like most movies. In all honesty, I spent a week constantly looking behind me after watching this movie, feeling like I'm always being watched, even though we only see the alien for about 5 minutes, which goes to show just how scary this movie truly is. Without delving into pure horror. This movie's use of science throughout, hinting at the ending, are ingenious, and even leave a lot up to viewer interpretation. For the entire duration of the movie, Bo drinks a bit of water and then leaves the glass out because it tastes funny to her. She does this multiple times. While the viewer may think that this means the aliens have poisoned the water, which I thought on my first watch, a line of dialogue near the beginning of the film claims that she's done this her entire life. This issue that Bo has with her water comes in handy at the end of the movie, when, surprise, water really is the weakness of the aliens, as Ray predicted. So Meryl brings the glasses of water Bo left out all over the alien. Speaking of Meryl, it is well established that Meryl was an amazing batter at baseball, but wouldn't hold back his swings, so never went pro. Additionally, Graham's wife's last words were, "And tell Meryl to swing away." Furthermore, Meryl's baseball bat is hanging up in the living room, so when the pantry alien is holding Morgan during the film's climax, Graham remembered those last words and told Meryl to swing away. So Meryl broke all of Bo's water glasses over the aliens, killing it, or the alien killing it. To add even more layers of foreshadowing, Morgan's asthma made sure that the alien's poison didn't go into his lungs, saving his life. The way that all of these seemingly irrelevant details are actually important to the plot is excellent writing and exemplifies Chekhov's gun, which states, "If in the first act you hung a pistol on the wall, then in the following one it should be fired. Otherwise, don't put it there." This principle is barely followed by modern movies like the redundant new Star Wars trilogy, but this movie just gets that right, with almost no details being irrelevant. That makes this story kind of timeless, besides the CGI, as it doesn't root itself in the pop culture and society of its time of release, nor does it rely too much on general mystery. Even though mystery is a big part of it, it still works on second watches. A common plot hole people often don't bring up is that it wouldn't make sense for the aliens who are weak to water to attack a planet mostly made up of water, with beings, humans, and animals too, also mostly made up of water. But to add even more complexity to this ending, there is a prevalent theory online that the aliens aren't weak to water, and the reason that water killed them was because it was holy water, as it was within a priest's house during that final battle. More credit is added to this theory when you consider that the radio stated that the aliens' weakness was discovered in Middle Eastern countries, an area shrouded in Christianity. There is also a theory that the aliens are demons, which further ties them into the story's theme and adds even more to the holy water theory. Speaking of the story's theme, I think this might truly be the best part of this movie, as it was a very clever way to combine an alien invasion story with the idea of faith versus realism. This sci-fi thriller seamlessly works in a pro-religion, pro-faith message by drawing comparisons between believing in the supernatural and believing in a greater being and fate. Using aliens as a metaphor for God also just works, with both being associated with the sky and, of course, having their believers and their doubters. The scene that best encompasses this story's focus on religion was the dinner scene before the invasion, where Graham refuses to pray before his meal and breaks down screaming at his children. Mel Gibson's acting here is so emotional and conveys the brokenness of Graham, torn by his anger at God. It contrasts well with Graham's silent prayer over Morgan at the end of the film. Similarly, Graham curses God during the basement scene, which parallels with Meryl's prayer mere moments later. The religious themes of this movie are so potent and well thought out that this movie transcends just a scary sci-fi thriller and serves as a good argument for faith over coincidence, because at the end of the day, there are signs of a greater being up above all around us, and we are the ones who choose to either notice these signs and acknowledge them, or ignore them and call it a coincidence. JM Comics, out.